Welcome back to another enlightening episode of The Truth About the Plant, the show that takes you on a journey through the world of psychoactive plants and alternative wellness, all while delivering the real, actionable insights you crave. I'm your host, Christina Dees, and this is my equally talented co host, Dr. Amanda Ryman. And Dr. Ryman, you get the honors of telling everyone why we're here, why do we show up every week, and answer truth about the plant in 15 minutes or less.
Well, that's a great question. So, we are here because it can be so difficult to find good evidence backed information about cannabis on the internet. You may have a question, a really good question, one that can impact your health, safety, and well being. You get on the Google, you ask it, and you get 100 different responses. Many of them completely contradict each other. So, how are you supposed to know what to believe? Well, that's where we come in. We are here to give you evidence informed, science backed information about how to use cannabis safely and effectively, all in 15 minutes or less, so you can get the information you need and get about your day. So, you may want to think about us as your really cool aunties or your kick ass granddaughters, basically, the women in your life who will always tell you the truth.
Well, you might be feeling the weight of the world on your shoulders, and you are not alone. So, today we're going to dive into a viewer question that's about finding the calm in the chaos. How do I use cannabis for stress? Well, whether you're looking to unwind after a long day or you're just curious about how this plant might help smooth the edges, we're here to explore with you and get the stories behind stress relief with cannabis. So, Dr. Ryman, it's holiday time, which means lots of family, friends, food, planning, and let's face it, stress. So while cannabis may be beneficial in reducing the anxiety that comes along with social interactions and planning these back-to-back engagements, the wrong product or dose might make things worse instead of better. So does cannabis help with stress?
Well, that's a great question. It is definitely the time of the year where people are feeling a little bit more stressed out. Lots of social engagements, as you mentioned, lots of energy expenditure, lots of managing parties and events, which, fun, yes, but also can be really, really stressful. So people might think about cannabis. It's like, hey, kind of a chill out drug, something that's going to help take the edge off. And they're thinking that maybe they want to use cannabis to help reduce their holiday related stress, help them sleep a little bit better, help reduce that anxiety that comes with this time of the year. And actually, reducing stress and anxiety is one of the top three reasons that people use cannabis. So it's not like this is unheard of. However, if you don't know what you're doing, if you don't know how to find the right cannabinoids, the right product, the right dosage, and take the product in the right set and setting, unfortunately, cannabis can actually increase stress and anxiety. And we definitely don't want that to happen. So, we're here to give you some pointers on how to find the right products to make sure that when you use cannabis this holiday season to take the edge off, you actually get to a state of bliss and don't stay in a state of oh shit.
Yeah. And, I've had cannabis products that make me feel like I'm floating in a relaxing pool. And I've had some that make me want to furiously clean my house. So let's start with cannabinoid and terpene content. How does that impact stress?
So, we talk about cannabis and we talk about balance, right? The importance of wanting to find a cannabis product that gives you balance. So, if you think about a seesaw, right, you want to have both sides balanced. If there's too much on one side or too much on the other, it's just going to go kerthunk and then you're not going to get anywhere. So, it's very similar with the cannabis plant. So, the cannabis plant has a lot of different chemicals inside. Most of them are what we know as cannabinoids, and THC and CBD are the two most popular cannabinoids that we hear about, that we see in cannabis products. THC, of course, is responsible for the psychoactive effect of cannabis, the high, and CBD is known for its great therapeutic value, but also producing a very relaxing yet not intoxicating effect. So when you are looking to use cannabis to relax, you don't want all of one or all of the other. You want a nice mix of the two. If you have too much THC without anything to balance it out, then you may get overwhelmed. You may actually increase your level of anxiety. And similarly, if you have all CBD and none of that THC, you may feel a little bit relaxed, but it's not going to give you that little boost of psychoactivity that's really going to help that stress disappear. So when you're at the dispensary, this is what that looks like. If you're going to buy cannabis flower, or a cannabis vape pen, for example, you want something that has kind of an equal amount of THC and CBD. So in a flower, that could be something that's 10% THC and 8 or 9% CBD. In a vape pen or in an edible or my favorite tincture, you're looking for a ratio of THC to CBD. So you want something that's like 1 to 1, 1 part CBD to 1 part THC, and you can kind of adjust from there. If you're like, well, I want a little bit more psychoactivity, you can maybe do a 5 to 1 THC to CBD. So it really depends on what you're looking for, but finding something that has more than just one cannabinoid represented is really going to increase the likelihood of getting the effect you're looking for. Now, besides THC and CBD, there's a whole host of other cannabinoids that are in the plant. We call them minor cannabinoids because they're not as prolific in the plant as THC or CBD tends to be, but they also have an effect on how the product will make you feel. So these are things like CBN, CBG, CBC, and THCV. So if you buy a tincture or an edible, for example, you may see it advertised as a 1 to 1 THC, CBG, CBD. So really you want as many different cannabinoids as possible in your product. We've talked about full spectrum here on this show. You can check out our episode about what is full spectrum. And full spectrum is really giving you the benefit of the entire plant. At the end of the day, you want what you put in your body to be as close to what was originally in that plant as possible, including all of the amazing cannabinoids and all the terpenes. So terpenes are the smells, the aromas that come in the cannabis plant. They also have an effect on how the plant can make you feel. Some terpenes are relaxing and some are stimulating. So if you're looking for something that's going to help relax you, some terpenes to look for are things like linalool and myrcene. Both of these terpenes have a relaxing effect. The terpenes you may want to stay away from are terpinolene and limonene. So both terpinolene and limonene have an uplifting effect. So going back to your example, if you're looking to furiously clean your house before your guests arrive, then yeah, maybe you want to look for something that's high in limonene. It's going to give you a burst of energy, but it's at the end of the night and you just want to go to sleep and not think about that conversation you had with your great aunt about politics at the dinner table that night. I would look for something that's high in linalool and also something that's high in CBN, which is a cannabinoid that's been known to aid with sleep.
All right, so I'm going to take us in a direction because, me, if I'm having people over, if I'm entertaining, I cannot be super high, right? So I want something that is low, like you're talking about, and I want something full that's balanced. I love your seesaw analogy. So what you're saying, it sounds like a full spectrum product with a nice balance of cannabinoids and relaxing terpenes is the best choice instead of a potent THC only product. So my question is, how does dose fit in?
Well, it fits in pretty much like you'd expect, right? So we talk on this show a lot about start low and go slow. Even if you have a balanced product, you still want to follow that advice. When we're going to talk about set and setting in a minute, but let's face it, your mindset and your setting over the holidays can be quite different from what it usually is. And that can play into how the product makes you feel, even at your usual dose. So if you're somebody that usually has a 10 milligram THC edible, I'd start with half of that and see how you feel because you're already going to have adrenaline and cortisol and other chemicals running through your body to get you through this in a response to stress, which can be enhanced by cannabinoids. So high doses of THC increase the chances of anxiety. So you really want to be careful when you talk about how much THC you're consuming. Another thing to look out for when it comes to dose is product type. So if you can find an edible, because edibles are really popular during the holidays, you don't have to go outside to do it. You can just slip a gummy in your mouth while you're cooking dinner, slip them to one of your relatives while they're sitting around. That's another way to reduce stress over the holidays is dose your family. But
Funny, but not funny.
Funny, but not funny. So if you can find a fast acting edible, I highly recommend that because first of all, you're going to know how it's going to make you feel quicker. And that's going to help you titrate your dose more. So you're going to know pretty quickly if this is enough or if you're going to need more. So fast acting edibles are a great choice. Another reason they're a great choice is because they do not have quite as heavy a psychoactive effect as traditional edibles. So we've talked about this on the show also. We have episodes on edibles. when you eat a traditional edible that has to be digested through the liver, the THC delta 9 actually transforms into delta 11 during that process, which is a more psychoactive component. And so some people claim that when they eat a traditional edible, the effect is a little bit more psychedelic than it is cannabis like. And you don't want to find yourself, like you said, super duper high when you're trying to entertain and you have to go in the back room or something and like take a breather. I would try to stay away from traditional edibles if possible. Finding something that's fast acting, something that a beverage perhaps that's fast acting that you can have in lieu of alcohol is a great choice. Because the other thing I'm going to say is if you are consuming cannabis products over the holidays, especially if you're newer to cannabis, I would forego the alcohol altogether. If it does have a 1+1=4 relationship, you can become way too intoxicated without even meaning to. So if you have access to a cannabis beverage, and nowadays with hemp infused beverages, pretty much everyone has access to a low dose cannabis beverage. There's some really great mocktail recipes you can make. And we had Jamie Evans, the herb som, on this show. So you should watch our episode with her. She's got an amazing cookbook out that has all kinds of drinks recipes. And so I would recommend foregoing the alcohol, looking for a low dose, fast acting cannabis beverage that has both THC and CBD as a way to get that relaxation without worrying about becoming overly intoxicated.
Yeah, and I love that you brought up the cannabis beverages because I think that is a great option. But just remember to go slow with them. Don't slam
Yes.
them even though they might taste good. So, you're saying full spectrum, balanced, fast acting, lower dose, all good recommendations for products. What about you and your environment? How does that impact stress level?
Well, so much so. Like, so much so. I mean, cannabis aside, right? Think about how you feel when you're sitting at home in your living room on like a Saturday night watching Netflix, just totally chilling with one or two other people, versus how you feel when you're at a loud concert or a really crowded party and you're circling the room and talking to a whole bunch of people. You're in a totally different mindset, right? And because cannabis is reacting with our endocannabinoid systems, with our bodies, with the cannabinoids we're making inside of our bodies, it is absolutely impacted by how you feel and how your environment makes you feel. So don't assume that just because you can sit on the couch on a Saturday night and smoke joint after joint and just feel nothing but relaxed, that you're going to be able to do the same thing when you're going to like your Christmas party or a Christmas party where there's going to be like 50 people there and you're going to have to circle the room, or you're going to an event where you're going to be taken out of your comfort zone and there's going to be a lot of visual stimulation. This last weekend, we went to a really cool light show at the Chinese Botanic Gardens in Seattle. And so I decided to eat a 5 milligram edible, which is my usual dose. And at home, I feel it a little bit, but it's just like this nice, relaxing thing. Well, I got to this gardens and there were like lasers and lights and things all over the place. And I felt so much higher than I do when I'm at home. Same exact dose, same exact product, different setting. So take that into consideration when you're planning your dose. Like I said, if you're usually a 10 milligram consumer, start with 5 if you're going to be in an unfamiliar environment. If unfamiliar environments give you anxiety, you may not want to use cannabis there. It may increase your anxiety. Not for everyone, but it is an outcome that may happen. So just be aware of that, have a plan. If I take this and I start to feel bad or I start to feel anxious, what am I going to do? Is there a place I can go sit down? Is there a quiet place I can go? Can I leave? If I decide to leave, do I have a ride home? Have a contingency plan. Cannabis has very low risk and very little chance of harm, but it isn't zero. And you want to have a good time. And you don't want to look back and say, wow, that could have been really fun if I had just thought more about my dose of cannabis, about my cannabis product, because there's so many products out there that if you have the right information, you will be able to make the right choice and you'll be able to practically eliminate the chance of having a negative outcome.
Well, I don't want you to have to repeat yourself, but you're saying an anxious environment and mindset might be worsened by cannabis. Yeah?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it makes sense, right? I mean, cannabis is a therapeutic tool, but it's not a magic bullet. So if you are going into an environment that already makes you feel really anxious and you take the wrong cannabis product or you take too much THC, there's a good chance that the anxiety is going to increase. And that's why we say, think about the cannabinoid ratio. So for example, if I was going into an environment that I knew was going to make me anxious, I may not even choose a 1-to-1 THC CBD. I may choose like a 10-to-1 CBD THC, 10 parts CBD to 1 part THC, because that's going to reduce the chance of me having any kind of anxiety from being in that environment.
Well, I love it. I hope you learned something today, because that is a wrap on today's journey to stress free living. If today's episode got you thinking or relaxing, don't keep it to yourself, just like the viewer that sent in this question. Thank you so much, by the way. So be sure to share your thoughts, questions, your favorite chill out tips, anything you want. Drop us a line at info@mypersonalplants.com. And remember, our YouTube garden, it's always blooming with more plant powered wisdom. So subscribe, like, ring the bell to stay in the loop. And until next time, stay calm, stay curious, and keep your vibe as smooth as your favorite strain. See you next time.